Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give it about another minute or two before we get started, just to make sure everybody was able to log on successfully, okay? We'll get started in about a minute. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the SBA's certification webinar. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Sandra Anguiano, and I'm a business opportunity specialist at the Orange County Inland Empire District Office. We cover the counties of Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino here in Southern California. The programs that we're going to be discussing today are available nationwide. So if you have joined us from outside of our territory, just know that the same rules apply across the board. And if you are from another district and you need assistance, please reach out to us and we can connect you with your local district office once you're ready to apply or are a participant in the programs. A copy of the presentation and a link to the recording will be provided within the next 48 hours. So don't worry about, taking down the notes or trying to copy a website. You will receive a copy of the presentation with live links so that you can just go and explore the sites and any information that we share this morning. Today, we're going to be covering the 4 SBA certification programs. These are the 8A Business Development Program, the HUBZone Program, the Woman-Owned Small Business Contracting Program, and the Economically Disadvantaged Women-Owned Small Business Contracting Program, as well as the Veterans Certification Program. For those of you who have joined online via Teams, please make sure to use the Q&A box to type out any questions that you may have. We can't take any live questions. We don't have the function to unmute the lines, but we will get to those questions in the Q&A. So please type those out. If I don't get to them throughout the presentation, I will answer them at the end. If there are any specific questions that come to mind that you'd like to discuss one-on-one, I will share my contact information at the end of the presentation, and you can also, reach out to me directly if you'd prefer that, and we can speak offline. Now, before we go ahead and jump into the programs, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to federal government contracting. This may be useful information for those of you that are just starting off, or maybe the information presented is going to be, a refresher or clarification for those of you that have already started the process. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the first question that comes to mind is, what does the federal government buy? The federal government buys just about everything, from office supplies to janitorial services to construction of government facilities and much more. They are the largest procurer of goods and services with set annual goals for their huge budget. Businesses should do market research to determine if the federal government buys its service or product. We recommend that you do your market research to find out what the government is buying. And in the next few slides, we will cover a few useful links for you to use as a starting point. I would also like to point out that there are various levels of government and not all certifications are equal. The state has its own process of procuring, cities have their own programs, and even large businesses and prime contractors have their own process. It's important to identify who you want to do business with to determine what certification it is that you need. The certifications that we're going to be discussing today are all at the federal level. So if you're interested in doing business with like the state of California or with counties or local cities, they're going to have a completely different process, and that's not what we're going to be discussing today. Today is strictly federal certifications. Where can you go to conduct market research? On this slide here, we provide a couple of links for you to start off. First off is sam.gov. For all government certifications, you will be required to have a SAM account. So this is something that you want to get started on as soon as possible. On this website, you can search by keyword, by industry, specific state, specific agency to find opportunities that are available. The System for Award Management is an essential resource. This is where you're going to find all federal contracting opportunities. All solicitations or invitations to bid with a value of $25,000 or more are published here on this site. You can set up your profile for free. You may reach out to a resource partner to help guide you through that process if you run into any trouble. There are a few steps and some accounts you have to set up before you can create your profile. So it's a good idea, to set up an appointment with the counselor with one of our research partners so that they can help guide you through that process and make sure everything runs smoothly. We have the Small Business Search System, or SBS. This is a database that government agencies use to find small business contractors for upcoming contracts. Small businesses can also use this system to find other small businesses to work with. The SBA maintains this SBS database. So the information that you provide when you register your business in SAM, that is used to help populate this profile on SBS. So you should create a comprehensive business profile. We have the Interagency Directory, or ICD. This is a central repository of indefinite delivery vehicles awarded by the federal agencies. So this can include, government-wide acquisition contracts, multiple agency contracts, federal supply schedules, basic ordering agreements, and blanket purchase agreements. USAspending.gov. This site provides information on how the federal government spends money or how they forecast to. So this is the official source for spending data for the US government. Its mission is to show the American public what the federal government spends every year and how it spends that money. So you can follow the money from the congressional appropriations all the way down, to federal agencies and even down to local communities and businesses. So it's a great tool to conduct market research to see, which businesses are getting these awards with the federal government. We also have the GSA e-library. This is your one source for the latest GSA contract award information. And then we have the Acquisition Central site. This site lets you search for forecasts by agency. So each agency has its own website, and you can go on there and see their forecast. But this one here consolidates all that information. So instead of you jumping from one site to another, it's all under one tab there. So the law requires that agencies compile and make available projections of contracting opportunities that small, minority, and women-owned small businesses may be able to perform. So each of these links here will take you to their sites. This is a great starting point for you to conduct market research. You'll notice that each site offers trainings, webinars, and points of contact for questions that you may have. So I invite you to check that out when you receive a copy of the presentation. The federal government has prime contracting procurement goals that must annually be met. There are certain set-asides for certification programs and socioeconomic categories. Of the huge budget that the federal government receives each year, 23% of their total contracting dollars must be spent on small business. Specifically, there are targeted set-asides and acquisition goals for the following programs. 5% must go to woman-owned small businesses. 5% must go to small disadvantaged businesses, such as those firms that participate in the 8A program. 3% must go to HUBZone businesses, and 5% must go to service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. These set-asides are reserved for small businesses between $15,000 and $350,000. In order to be eligible for the SBA's certification programs, you must be a small business in accordance with the SBA's size standards. So the SBA determines the size standards for a small business, and there are two ways that size is looked at. The size of your business is going to be determined either by your average revenues over the past 5 years or by the number of employees. This applies to manufacturers, dealers, and wholesalers. So this is going to depend upon your primary industry code. You will need to determine your primary industry code in order to determine if you fall under the threshold for revenue or number of employees. We do have a link here for the size standard table. There are hundreds of NAICS codes or industry codes. So the first step would be to identify your NAICS code and then look it up to determine if you are considered small based on SBA's size standards. What types of businesses are getting contracts? This slide here provides an overview as to how or where the government spent its money. It is broken down by industry codes. There are various sectors depending upon which product or service you provide. Industry codes are very important in the federal government, so you want to make sure that you get familiar with them. NAICS codes. You're going to hear this over and over again. The North American Industry Classification System. Essentially, what that means is that you are going to pick the code that best suits your business, and you're going to use that code, when you're asked to provide, what kind of services do you provide? Does your business provide? No one assigns you a NAICS code. You alone must identify your industry code. These NAICS codes are used to track what the federal government is buying, and you must have this number listed on your SAM profile to demonstrate that you can provide a specific product or service. As long as you have a business, you must have a business activity. So your code merely describes your primary and secondary income producing lines of business. Most businesses are going to have more than one revenue producing line of business, but you will need to identify one industry as your primary source of income. You can list secondary codes on your profile, if you have additional sources of income. And as long as you can provide that service and you have the appropriate licenses, you can list those codes on your profile. But you do have to identify one as your primary industry code. As you start working with the federal government, you may want to look for opportunities as a subcontractor. You have these primes or large businesses, that are getting these contracts. So subs work under them. If you're not at the level to perform on your own as a prime, you would subcontract. So this is a great opportunity for small businesses to gain capacity and experience because you can list this as past performance for working as a subcontractor. Large procurements have subcontracting requirements, so prime contractors are looking for small businesses like you. Visit their websites and contact their supplier diversity department to learn how to do business with them and become a sub. If you visit the link at the bottom of this slide, you can find more information about how to win contracts. Under the subcontracting opportunities section, you will find a link to Subnet. Subnet is a database of subcontracting opportunities posted by large subcontractors looking for small businesses to serve as subcontractors. The SBA maintains a directory of federal government prime contractors with subcontracting plans. So make sure to check that link out. As you start digging into contracting, you're going to discover that there are many tiers. So here are a few tips that we offer for starting to work with federal agencies. We recommend that you focus on a few agencies at a time. Do your research, concentrate on those. There are numerous agencies and they are all buying various things. So you want to make sure that you review forecasts to see what's coming, visit their websites, and, become familiar with the information and updates that they post on there. You can contact the agencies directly. Each website will have a listed Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or OSDBU, and you can contact that office to learn how to do business with that specific agency. You must register on SAM.gov. Every contractor must be registered if you want to do business with the federal government. This is where the federal government will confirm that you are a legitimate business. This is also where you will be paid for providing your product or service. So this is going to be step number 1 for any SBA certification program. Your SAM profile will be verified and it must show as active before you may even begin the application process in the SBA portal. So make sure you get started on that as soon as possible. Setting up a SAM profile is completely free. Make sure you are at the right site. If you are asked to pay, you're in the wrong spot. So make sure it's sam.gov, not .org, .net, .com. sam.gov, and it'll have on there, official U.S. government website, 100% free. This process can take 4 to 6 weeks to finally get through every step and all the verification of all your accounts. So make sure you get started on that. If you'd like more general information on government contracting, I invite you to visit the SBA's Government Contracting Classroom. Here you will find 5 to 6 minute videos on various topics related to government contracting. There are even videos on, how to set up your SAM profile, how to contact an OSDBU office, and many other topics. So I recommend that you check it out if you have no knowledge yet. This is free and you can play the videos as many times as you'd like. And the SBA also has a YouTube channel with helpful videos. So we have that linked here as well. So check that out as well. If you are interested in doing business with other government levels, visit their websites. As I mentioned, all of SBA's certification programs are at the federal level. If you are looking to get certified as an SBE or DVBE, you will need to go through state procurement. If you are within our Tri-County area, you can reach out to each county as well to learn how to do business with them. Different organizations administer different programs, and their process is completely different from the SBA applications. So it's really important to find out who you want to do business with first, that way you can learn what you need to do in order to participate in their programs. Government and corporate procurement can be an incredible opportunity to grow your business revenues. And we have, the SBDC Center for Contracting available to help you with education, training, and one-on-one consulting. So I invite you to check out that link, set up an appointment with one of their consultants. Their team of experts has years of industry experience and is able to assist businesses located here in Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties at no cost. If you're from another county, SBDCs are all over the place, so we just need to identify, which county you're in to see who services you. But if you're here in Orange, Riverside, or San Bernardino, you can reach out to the OCIE SBDC Center for Contracting. So this concludes the introduction to federal government contracting. I hope you have found this information useful and that you visit the links when you receive a copy of this presentation. Now, if anybody joined us late, just know we can't take any live questions. We can't unmute the line. So if during the presentation you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box and I will try to get to those as I go through the presentation, or I'll just hold them off until the end. And you will receive a copy of the presentation, a link to the recording. So if there's anything that we missed, that I went through too fast, you can replay that and revisit the links as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the information on the 8A Business Development Program. This is the first certification program we'll be discussing today. So the 8A Business Development Program was named after a section of the Small Business Act and designated to help small disadvantaged businesses to compete in the American economy and access the federal procurement market. So it was created to help firms that are owned and controlled at least 51% by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. We will talk about what it means to be socially and economically disadvantaged when we get to the eligibility criteria. And we will also go over what it means to be owned and controlled and how the SBA reviews that information. SBA partners with federal agencies to promote maximum utilization of the 8A program participants to ensure access to contracting opportunities in the federal marketplace. Once certified, 8A program participants are eligible to receive federal contracting and receive training and technical assistance designed to strengthen their ability to compete effectively in the American economy. The program provides entrepreneurs with targeted management and technical assistance to help them compete for contracts and other business opportunities. This program offers a 9-year term and a one-time only participation, and we'll further discuss that in the following slides. So the 8A program can be a valuable tool for experienced socially and economically disadvantaged small business owners who have already been in business for at least 2 years or more and are interested in expanding their footprint in the federal marketplace. The 8A program offers unique and valuable business assistance. The 8A certification does not guarantee contract awards, but it is a dynamic tool to pursue and capture new opportunity from the government. The federal government's goal is to award at least 5% of all federal contracting dollars to small disadvantaged businesses each year. As a participant in the program, we will provide you with management and technical assistance, marketing and outreach assistance, the opportunity to pursue opportunities for mentorship from experienced and technically capable firms through the SBA Mentor Protege program, as well as pursue joint ventures with established businesses to increase capacity. You may also qualify to receive federal surplus property on a priority basis. These are tools and equipment from the state for pennies on the dollar. You may also receive free training from the SBA's Empower to Grow program. This program provides eligible disadvantaged U.S. small businesses with free business courses, tailored training, and one-on-one consulting to support their growth operations, hiring, regulatory compliance, and government contracting competitiveness. The biggest draw to the program, however, is the contract set-asides and sole source award opportunities. These set-asides can be for up to $5.5 million for goods and services and up to $8.5 million for manufacturing. In fiscal year 2025, 8A firms were awarded $75.3 billion in federal contracts. In the next few slides, we will be talking about the eligibility requirements for this program. Each category listed here will be something that you will be asked to provide information for in order to determine your eligibility. So we will talk about ownership, control, U.S. citizens, small business size standards, potential for success, good character, social disadvantage, and economic disadvantage. On the right is a reference for the Code of Federal Regulations, in case you're interested in looking up all the legal terms. And please note that you must be in business for at least 2 years before applying for this program. And I'll explain why later on. But first, let's talk about ownership. So the SBA requires that the individual upon whom eligibility is based directly and unconditionally own at least 51% of the firm. This must be direct ownership by the disadvantaged individual. You cannot be owned by another company. You cannot be owned by another trust. You must be the individual owner at 51% or more. That can be more than one person to make up the 51%. However, if you have more than one owner, each individual will need to meet every eligibility criteria. If you are married and residing in a community property state, it may be necessary to submit a notarized transmutation agreement to ensure that the disadvantaged individual owns at least 51%. Community property rights impact that unconditional ownership. Now, there is no requirement on the structure of the business. You can be a partnership, an LLC, a sole proprietorship. But these are examples of, what the SBA will require to demonstrate that 51% ownership. We're going to ask to see things like your stock certificates and ledgers, your IRS 1040 Schedule C or Schedule E, whichever one is applicable to your business structure. So you will need to submit your firm's tax returns for us to verify that information. So what the reviewer that's going to, take a look at your application, what they're going to be looking for is proof that on paper you can demonstrate that you own at least 51% of the business. Control. We require that the individual hold the highest position, be the highest compensated, or provide information as to, why it is in the best interest of the firm that others receive a higher compensation. The individual must devote full-time hours at the business concern during normal business hours, and this excludes any outside employment or business interests which may hinder the firm in achieving the goals and objectives of the 8A program. The individual must have the required management expertise to operate the firm. So the firm is going to have to show that one or more socially and economically disadvantaged individuals are the ones, that are serving as the highest officer, control the board, run the daily operations of the business, have the ability, to hire and fire employees, and things like that. And of course, you have to be physically located in the United States to be able to participate in this program. For all of SBA's programs, you must be a U.S. citizen in order to participate. You will be asked to provide a copy of your U.S. passport or certificate of naturalization. To be eligible for the program, you must also be a small business. So you must identify your primary NAICS code or industry code and determine if it falls under the revenue for the number of employees, if it falls under the revenue or number of employee threshold. The SBA also looks at the firms and the principal's relationships with other businesses and other individuals through prior relationships, family ties, and common investments. So if you have ownership in other businesses, you must disclose that information. Keep in mind that this is used to determine the size of your business. Potential for success. The firm must have the necessary track record and financial capacity to perform successfully on contracts awarded in the 8A program. The firm must meet potential for success criteria. So typically this is demonstrated by the firm being operational for at minimum 2 full years as verified by revenues reported in the firm's primary NAICS code and as reported on the firm's business tax returns. We want to make sure that participants in our program are ready and that they will be successful in the program. We don't want this to be a burden or for it to cost you money. We want you to participate in the program and make money, go and win these contracts, right? The federal government has certain requirements for businesses that are looking to bid on projects, which can be very different from the private sector. So in anticipation of that, we do a precursor and review your business. We look at your financial capability, make sure that you have sufficient capitalization, financial performance, bonding capacity, and manageable debts. Your managerial and technical capability, performance on previous contracts, that firm has the necessary personnel, licenses, certifications, and facilities, as well as prior experience. We're going to take a look at your management capability, the education, experience, and training of CEO and other managers, the magnitude and complexity of any past or current jobs, as well as your management systems. We will take a look at your qualifications for your ability to perform on federal contracts. So any relevant contracting experience, your ability to meet federal procurement policies. We just want to be sure that if you get into the program, you can take advantage of those contracting benefits and that you'll be able to successfully bid and win on these contracts. So you must be in business in your primary NAICS code for at least 2 full years immediately prior to the date of your 8A application. So for at least 2 years before you even apply, you must have been doing business in that primary NAICS code for 2 years and have a track record of that. There's another important reason why you should identify those NAICS codes, right? We understand that sometimes businesses transition from doing one thing to another, and it could be in a related field or industry, or it could be something completely different, right? So what we're looking for is proof that you have been doing work in the same NAICS code for at least 2 years. You're going to have to provide proof that you have generated revenue for that industry code. Now, if the business has not generated revenues for the preceding 2 years, if you don't have business tax returns to verify that, you can request a 2-year waiver. You can request this waiver of the 2-year rule. If you have not been in business for 2 years, or maybe you switched from one industry to another and you can't demonstrate that you have been doing business in that specific NAICS code for 2 years, you can request a waiver, but a few conditions will have to be met. You will have to show that you have substantial business management experience. You're going to have to demonstrate technical expertise. You must have adequate capital, and you must have a record of successful performance on contracts. So a waiver of the 2-year rule may be granted. However, the firm is going to have to address each element of the 2-year waiver in detail. So you're going to have to provide copies of contracts, letters of reference to verify successful contract performance. If you have any copies of invoices and proof of payment on invoices, you'll need to provide that with your application. Now, if the firm has not generated any revenues, then the firm will be, unable to waive the 2-year rule. So owners should strategically consider the timing on applying if their business experience is limited and exposure to the federal marketplace is at its infancy. Businesses who have an established track record as a subcontractor or prime contractor at the federal level, they tend to experience greater growth and higher levels of success and sustainability, than those businesses that are just starting in federal government contracting. The 8A program is a one-time only 9-year term program. Think about when to apply to the program so you can make the most of the limited time and increase your chances of winning contracts. Ask yourself, these questions and be honest with yourself. If you're a single person company who has never done a contract larger than 300,000, you may want to focus on building your business a bit more before you apply for this program. Some firms may be eligible for the 8A program. They check off all the boxes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to contract with the federal government. So ask yourself these questions to determine if you are on a path to success. Is your business procurement ready? Make sure you are ready to do business with the government before you obtain the certifications. Can you identify the federal agencies that purchase what you sell? Can you provide examples of similar work that your firm has completed that generated revenue? Are you prepared to access a line of credit or a performance bond if that's required for your industry? Have you selected a NAICS code? Are you registered in SAM already? Have you completed a capability statement? So, just simple questions to ask yourself to really time when you should apply for this program. Your potential for success will depend on what stage your business is in. Are you just starting up, or are you already well seasoned? You have a few good contracts under your belt and you're ready to tackle these on. Another criteria for eligibility is good character. The SBA wants to make sure that participants in our program have good character. So the SBA is going to look at the following to make that determination. The SBA looks at the following to make this decision: any adverse information regarding criminal conduct, violations of any SBA regulations, debarred or suspended firms or individuals, any principal who is incarcerated or on parole, submission of false information during the application process or after approval, any firm or any of its principals that failed to pay financial obligations to the federal government. Now, for that last bullet there, examples of that are any tax liens, if you're delinquent on a student loan, if you defaulted on an SBA loan, or any federal obligation will lead them to finding that you do not have good character. If perhaps you had a tax lien, but now you're on a payment plan, make sure, to disclose that and have your paperwork ready to show that, okay, yes, I had this tax lien, but I've got my payment plan, I'm working on it, then that's fine. Just make sure to document that with your application. Okay, we will now discuss the social disadvantage. So the definition of social disadvantage means that an individual has been subjected to racial, ethnic, or cultural bias within American society because of their identities as members of groups and without regard to their individual qualities. Now, an individual only needs to establish their social disadvantage once for the entirety of the program term. The SBA must determine that the discrimination or bias experienced by an individual is chronic, substantial, and has occurred within American society, not within, if it's your country of origin or anything like that. No, it has to have occurred within American society. And that discrimination must have negatively impacted your entry or advancement in the business world. Now, to demonstrate your social disadvantage, there's going to be business owners should include, the following elements. This is just to serve as a guide for you when you get to that section of the application. So an indication of which identity or identities is or are the basis of your social disadvantage. So examples of this are your race, religion, ethnic origin, gender, sexual orientation, an identifiable disability, isolation from American society, and others. Now, the description of incidents in which bias or discrimination has occurred. So these experiences should be related to education, employment, and business history. And you can include current or previously owned companies. So you will need to provide descriptions of incidents in which the bias or discrimination has occurred. Now, a socially disadvantaged individual must also be economically disadvantaged in order to be eligible for this program. So it has to be both socially and economically, not one or the other. If it's more than one applicant to prove that 51% ownership, then all applicants must meet this criteria as well. So in order to be economically disadvantaged, the SBA reviews the individual's personal net worth, which must be less than $850,000 after we exclude all legitimate retirement accounts and any equity in the primary residence and the applicant firm. We also review the individual's total asset level, which may not exceed $6.5 million, with the only allowed exclusion being the legitimate retirement accounts. And finally, the individual's average 3-year income may not exceed $400,000. Now, California is a community property state, so we will look at your spouse's assets as well. We're going to split everything 50-50. Whatever you claim to own on your own, 50% goes to your spouse and 50% will go on your personal financial statement for purposes of determining your adjusted net worth. Your salary or income will be verified through your personal tax returns, so you will be asked to provide copies of those as well. Now, if you are interested in calculating this for yourself before you apply, you can look up SBA Form 413. You can do a quick Google search or visit the SBA website, and it's listed there. So this is going to help you list out your assets. So if maybe there is something you didn't think about that we would ask for, that form will help you line by line calculate what your adjusted net worth would be. So check that out. So those are the eligibility requirements for the 8A program. During the application process, you will be asked questions in all of these sections. So make sure that you are honest and forthcoming when you complete the application. These are specific questions that are asked on the application and a big part of the eligibility criteria for the program. If you don't disclose information and the SBA discovers it, then it's going to create more issues, more delays for your application. We're often asked what kind of things would have a negative impact on your application. If the reviewer sees that there's a pattern of you constantly getting in trouble, like if you're in and out of jail, if you have felonies or any violence, if they question your business integrity, if you're writing bad checks and things like that, that's going to have a negative impact on your application. Things that really wouldn't affect your application are, minor sightings or, issues with the law or anything like that. So maybe, you had a citation for underage drinking or for, recreational drug use, jaywalking. Smaller things like that are not going to negatively impact your application, but you should disclose them if when they check your record, that's going to come up. Just mention it and move on. Go on with the application. Just be as honest as possible when you're completing that in the portal. When you're ready to apply, please visit My SBA Certifications. That's at certifications.sba.gov. That's where you'll need to go to answer all the questions, complete the application, and upload your supporting documentation. We don't take any hard copies here at the local district offices. Everything must be done through the portal because your application is going to be reviewed by somebody in DC. And then once you get approved, you get assigned to your local district. So stay tuned at the end of the presentations. I am going to provide a quick little overview of the My SBA certification portal to help get you started with that application process as well. These are the authorized resources available to you. You can find all this information on SBA's website. We have a dedicated email box for all general information, or if you have any questions, certifications@sba.gov. There's also the national help desk number there, 866 SBA help. Locally, we can answer general questions about the 8A program, but we have no say when it comes to your application. I do recommend that you reach out to one of our resource partners, such as the SBDC or SCORE or a Women's Business Center, to review your application before you submit it. You can also visit My SBA Certifications resources link for all the latest tools, frequently asked questions, and program information for the 8A Business Development Program. If your application is determined incomplete, the SBA will notify you in writing through My SBA Certifications. They'll send you a message there. You'll get an email to let you know if they need clarification or further information, in order to keep processing your application. Once the SBA has determined the application is complete, the SBA has 90 days to process the application and render a decision. Once you're certified, 8A program participants are responsible for maintaining continuing eligibility in the program. So each program participant shall certify on an annual basis that it meets statutory and regulatory requirements. So as part of an annual review, each participant must annually submit specific information to their servicing SBA district office, just to prove your continued eligibility and participation in the program. Okay, so this concludes the information on the 8A Business Development Program. I don't think I saw any more questions pop up in the Q&A box. But yes, you will get a copy of the recording um, of the presentation and a link to the recording. So I saw that was listed in the Q&A. But if any questions pop up, please feel free to type them there and I will take a look. If not, let's move on now to discuss the HUBZone program. So a HUBZone is a historically underutilized business zone. So this program was designed to help small firms in certain communities gain access to federal contract opportunities. HUBZone areas are typically areas of low median household incomes or high unemployment or both. We will talk about how you identify these zones in the following slides. So the HUBZone program certifies the eligibility of businesses in disadvantaged communities to compete for federal set-aside contracts, offering employment and growth opportunities where they're most needed for positive economic impact. The government has a mandate of awarding 3% of all prime contract dollars to HUBZone certified firms. There are contract set-asides and sole source opportunities for firms that are certified into the HUBZone program. HUBZone firms also receive a 10% price evaluation preference applied to full and open competition. If you are certified as HUBZone and you bid on a project that is open to competition, then you get a 10% price evaluation preference applied to the contract when being compared to a large business. If solely based on price and you and a large business have the same pricing, they will apply that 10% price evaluation preference. So meaning they're going to add 10% to the bid of that large business so that your bid would be considered lower. This is the only federal program that applies this benefit outside of set-asides. Generally, your benefit is for your certification only, but this program lets you use it on full and open competition as well. In FY 2025, the federal government spent $17.3 billion on HUBZone contracts. And at any given time, there are about 3,000 small firms that are certified in the HUBZone program. On this slide here, you can see, which agencies historically have awarded the most HUBZone contracts. You can see the agencies and the dollar amounts that they have awarded, or at least for FY 2025. So you see the Department of Defense is a big one. They're a big participant with the HUBZone program, GSA, the VA, Department of Health and Human Services. So kind of gives you a general idea as to, which agencies are awarding HUBZone contracts. Now, across the country, there are more than 22,000 communities that are designated as HUBZones. HUBZones are designated based on economic and population data from the Census Bureau and other federal agencies using definitions that are established by Congress. So the basis for all of these areas are high unemployment and or low income. Every 5 years, the HUBZone program is required to update the HUBZone designations to ensure that the program continues to serve the communities that are most in need of assistance. Most areas stay the same, but some do change. I believe the map that is out right now that is live was last updated in 2023. But there are going to be some, updates in the next few years. At some point this year, they have to go in and, change it out to reflect the expiring redesignated areas. And then, throughout any year to reflect any new and expiring governor designated covered areas and qualified disaster areas as appropriate. So it doesn't change too often, but there are the program changes that take place every 5 years. In July of 2028, it should be updated to reflect changes to qualified census tracts and qualified non-metropolitan counties. If you visit the SBA website, you can find the HUBZone maps to look up your address and see if you are located within a HUBZone. The map is color-coded and easy to read. So we do suggest that you plug in a specific address still, because if you're just glancing at it, one side of the street could be a HUBZone area and across the street it's not. So for best results, plug in a specific address on there, to see if you're in a qualified area. If you're thinking about moving your office and you want to take advantage of the opportunities for HUBZone programs, you can, check that out, see if the new address is going to be in a qualified area or not. Now, to be eligible for this program, you must be a small business in accordance with the SBA's size standard table. At time of application for certification on a HUBZone small business, concern must meet the SBA size standards for its primary industry classification. At the time of initial contract offer, a HUBZone small business concern must be small for the size standard corresponding to the NAICS code assigned to the contract. In addition to the size of your business, we will also look at your ownership. Your business must be directly and unconditionally owned and controlled by at least 51% U.S. citizens. If there are multiple owners making up that 51%, all owners must be U.S. citizens. The SBA does not consider holders of permanent visas and resident aliens to be citizens. Your business or principal office must be located within a designated HUBZone in order to be eligible. So principal office means the location where the greatest number of the concern's employees at any one location perform their work. So if an employee works at multiple locations, then the employee will be deemed to work at the location where the employee spends more than 50% of his or her time. If an employee does not spend more than 50% of his or her time at any one location, and at least one of those locations is a non-HUBZone location, then the employee will be deemed to work at a non-HUBZone location. In order for a location to be considered the principal office, the concern must conduct business at this location. Now, for those concerns whose primary industry classification is services or construction, the determination of principal office excludes the concern's employees who perform more than 50% of their work at job site locations to fulfill specific contract obligations. If all of a concern's employees perform more than 50% of their work at job sites, the concern does not comply with the principal office requirement. This can get a little tricky, so if you have any questions or a specific situation scenario you want to run by us, feel free to reach out, offline to make that determination. Aside from being located in a HUBZone, at least 35% of your employees must also reside in a HUBZone. The SBA has its own definition as to what an employee is for purposes of applying to this program. So an employee means all individuals employed on a full-time, part-time, or other basis, so long as that individual works a minimum of 10 hours per week. This includes employees obtained from a temporary employee agency, leasing concern, or through a union agreement. Volunteers are not considered employees, and you cannot count them as part of the 35% requirement. Now, the SBA defines reside to live in a primary residence at a place for at least 90 days, or as a currently registered voter and with intent to live there indefinitely. If you have an employee who has recently moved, or they haven't been at their new address for very long, they can demonstrate their intent by updating their ID or driver's license and then you'd be able to submit, that a copy of that with your application to prove, that your employee resides in a HUBZone location. When determining the percentage of employees that reside in a HUBZone, if the percentage results in a fraction, round up to the nearest whole number. You can find the full qualification criteria in Title 13, Part 126, Subpart B of the Code of Federal Regulations, and that's the red text that you see here. Now, to apply for the HUBZone program, you will also need to visit the My SBA portal, which is at certifications.sba.gov. I do see a question that popped up here in the chat that says, what if the business is not located in a HUBZone? Would it be considered? No, you cannot apply for the program, or you're going to be denied if your business is not located in a HUBZone location. Then you are not eligible to participate in this program. The business itself, the address must be located within a HUBZone, and 35% of your employees must reside in a HUBZone as well. It doesn't have to be the same HUBZone where the business is located, but they do have to reside in a HUBZone as well. Now, you'll need to recertify for the HUBZone program every 3 years. There is no limit to the length of time a business can participate in this program as long as it continues to qualify and meet the eligibility criteria. But although there is no limit to the length of time a firm may qualify as a HUBZone firm, the certification is not a lifetime certification. Please note that if a firm fails to recertify within the required time frame, the SBA will propose a firm for decertification. Once you are HUBZone certified, the program office will contact you with steps to complete this action of when you're due for your recertification. The SBA may conduct a program examination at any time after you submit your application, or even during the processing of your application, or at any time while the concern is a certified HUBZone small business concern. So a program examination is an investigation by SBA officials to verify the accuracy of any certification made or information provided as part of the HUBZone application or recertification process. You'll need to provide documents similar to those submitted with your initial application, which may include, your corporate documents, firm employee and location lists, a copy of your payroll records, utility bills, a copy of your lease for, your office space that is located in a HUBZone. We may also ask to see employee HUBZone residency documents. So a copy of the driver's license, a pay stub, things like that to prove that your employees live within a HUBZone. You will receive an email from headquarters with instructions for completing this step once you are certified into the program. If a firm fails to respond, the SBA may propose decertification based on your failure to cooperate with the program examination. In order to not lose your HUBZone certification, make sure that you notify the SBA as soon as possible if there are any material changes in the business which could affect your continued eligibility. Moving your principal office outside of a HUBZone zone, even across the street, can disqualify you. So if you have a change of address, just be sure, to notify the HUBZone program office so that they can, make sure that you've relocated to another HUBZone area, or else you're going to be, decertified from the HUBZone program. If your workforce shifts and fewer than 35% live in a HUBZone, then you would be failing the employee residency test. So, make sure that you keep a good count of that and make sure that you always maintain that 35% employee residency. We do have here on this slide a video for maintaining your eligibility. So I invite you to check that out if you want to learn more information about that. The SBA will conduct a program examination of each certified HUBZone firm at least once every 3 years to ensure continued program eligibility. But we may conduct more frequent program examinations using a risk-based analysis to select, which concerns are examined. So just be aware that at any time, we can give you a call, send you a message to say that we're going to come out and visit you, and maybe, a list of information of documents that you will need to provide to us. In order to get the most out of your HUBZone certification, make sure you take advantage of all the resources that are available to you. You can look into, participating in a joint venture. This can help you get enhanced market penetration, share cost, expenses, and returns, and help increase your knowledge and experience. You can utilize the Mentor Protege program to enhance your capabilities. It can help you, meet established business plan goals, and improve your ability to compete for contracts. You can also, get access to other certification programs. You can, gain access to further contracting opportunities by combining the HUBZone certification with other certification types. If you're eligible to apply for 8A and HUBZone and WOSB, you can do that. And even with certifications at the state and local levels, like you don't have to choose one certification over another. As long as you're eligible and meet the criteria, you can apply for all of the programs at once. You want to make sure that you take advantage of the SBA's resource partners. As I've mentioned, they can assist with training, executive education, one-on-one consulting, and they have a broad range of business disciplines. So please check that link out as well. That'll take you to our local resource partners here in Orange County and in Empire. You must be proactive in your self-marketing. The HUBZone certification program is not a contracting program. The program requires significant commitment on the part of the business to market its product or service in order to succeed in the program. Focus on areas in your niche market and prioritize. Identify federal buyers and get to know them. Identify the agency contracting procedures and those who make the buying decisions, and make contacts through small business events, and be sure to network your business, to go out there and promote your certification to help you pursue those opportunities as well. I would like to mention that the HUBZone program is managed out of DC, so to get more specific answers, we recommend that you contact them directly by emailing certifications@sba.gov. There's also, that help desk number. We have different fact sheets and checklists, details about eligibility and applying for this program at sba.gov/HUBZone, and of course the link to the maps. That's going to be, your first step on there. Visit the maps, plug in your business address, see if you're located in a HUBZone. If you are, great. Then you can, go check your employees and see if they live in a HUBZone and you meet that 35% criteria as well. So this concludes the overview of the HUBZone program. I believe I got to the questions in the Q&A box. I see that there are some more specific. Somebody's asking about the Sacramento area, so I'll answer that one offline. But if there are any questions about the eligibility criteria for the program, or even the 8A, if something has come to mind as I've gone through this one, please type them out there in the Q&A box. Okay, now let's move on to the Women-Owned Small Business and Economically Disadvantaged Women-Owned Small Business Certification Program. So to help provide a level playing field for women business owners, the government limits competition for certain contracts to businesses that participate in this WOSB program. So these contracts are for goods and services in specific industries where women-owned small businesses are underrepresented. Some contracts are restricted further to economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. And the SBA maintains a list of those eligible industries and their NAICS codes. It is important to note that WOSB certification benefits only apply to federal contracting opportunities rather than those in the private sector. The federal government's goal is to award at least 5% of all federal contracting dollars to women-owned small businesses each year. Joining the WOSB Federal Contract Program makes a business eligible to compete for federal contracts reserved for the program's certified participants. These contracts are known as set-asides. So provided they are eligible, WOSB certified firms can still compete for contract awards under other socioeconomic programs, including 8A and HUBZone. Firms that choose not to participate in the SBA's WOSB federal contracting program may continue to identify as a woman-owned small business in SAM.gov for the purposes of competing for other contracts. However, they will not be eligible to pursue federal contracts that are restricted for SBA certified WOSB or EDWOSB. So if you simply want to identify your firm, that it is a woman-owned small business, you can do that self-certification through SAM.gov. But if there is a solicitation out there, a contract being set aside for WOSB, EDWOSB, you would not be eligible. You have to go through the formal application process with the SBA in order to pursue federal contracts. But you are still welcome to self-certify as a woman-owned small business. In FY 2025, the federal government spent $29.4 billion on WOSB contracts, and there are about 12,000 firms that are certified in this program at any given time. You can see here again that the Department of Defense does provide awards for WOSB programs. They were the top agency for FY25 with $11.4 billion. And then, we have listings here from GSA, Health and Human Services, and the VA. Now, to be eligible for the WOSB contract program, a business must be a small business according to SBA size standards. You must be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens. And again, that 51% ownership must be direct and unconditional. You must have women manage the day-to-day operations, and the women must also make the long-term decisions, including that, the woman must work at the business full-time during normal business hours, must hold the highest officer position within the business, must have the managerial experience required to run the business and make long-term decisions for the business. There is no minimum amount of time for businesses to be operational in order to qualify for this program. So for this one, we're not going to ask that, you have to be in business for 2 years and provide tax returns and prove that you've been in business. This one, there's no minimum amount of time. And as long as you're eligible for this program, you may continue to participate. There's not a term limit on this program as well. Now, to qualify as an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business within the program, you must meet the criteria we just discussed on the previous slide, but you must also meet the criteria listed here. So you must be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with a personal net worth less than $850,000, excluding her ownership interest in the concern and her equity interest in her primary personal residence. You must be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with $400,000 or less in adjusted gross income, averaged over the previous 3 years. You must be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with $6.5 million or less in personal assets. For the fair market value of all personal assets, including primary residence and the value of the business concern. Funds invested in an official retirement account are excluded from the assessment of an economically disadvantaged individual's personal net worth. Applicants that wish to qualify as an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business will be required to submit financial information for all owners comprising 51% ownership interest in order to ensure economic disadvantage thresholds are not exceeded. So the following documents will be required for all individuals compromising 51% ownership. You will be asked to submit federal personal tax returns from the last 2 years, including your W-2s, schedules, and attachments. If you don't have W-2s, you may submit your 1099s. We will also ask to see your federal business tax returns from the last 2 years if you've been doing business for that long already. We will also ask for copies of your financial statements, retirement account statement. Funds invested in an official retirement account will be excluded from the assessment of an economically disadvantaged individual's personal net worth. And then your personal financial information. This is going to be required for each woman claiming economic disadvantage and for each woman's spouse. Detailed information is needed regarding the value of all assets. So this is going to include cash on hand and in banks, accounts and notes receivable, retirement accounts, stocks, bonds, real estate, personal property, life insurance, and any other assets. Your liabilities, such as loans, mortgages, tax debts, or any other liabilities. And then your income is going to include, your salary, investment income, if you have any real estate income, or any other income, you're going to have to disclose that information. The EDWOSB is a subset of the WOSB program. As such, if you qualify as an EDWOSB, you automatically qualify as a WOSB. Now, please keep in mind that if more than one woman make up the 51% ownership, all women will need to submit this information to qualify for the economic disadvantage portion of it. Now, as I mentioned, to qualify for this program, your NAICS code must fall under a certain list of eligible industries. Not all NAICS codes are eligible to participate in this program. These contracts for WOSB and EDWOSB are for specific industries where women-owned small businesses are underrepresented. We have a link here, eligible NAICS codes, at the bottom of this slide for reference for you to check out to see if your code is on the list. If your code is not on either list, then there are no contract opportunities for you under this program at this time. Congress does require the SBA to conduct a study every 5 years to identify industries in which small businesses owned and controlled by women are underrepresented in the federal marketplace. I believe the most recent study was conducted in October of 2022. So next year we should be getting an update, more codes added or some taken off. And if you visit our website, you can find the full study and see how they came to this determination. Before firms can compete for WOSB set-aside federal contracts, you do have to apply for certification through the My SBA portal. This certification site can also help firms, understand the certification process. If you visit the link there, you can access checklists that provide guidance prior to applying. You can explore your company's eligibility and even request information from SBA program experts. But that's where you'll need to go to create an account and proceed with the application. The application is 100% free. There's no charge for completing any application for the SBA certification programs. If somebody's asking you to pay, it's probably a consultant and they will charge you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do that. But it's very simple to apply on your own or through the assistance of our resource partners that can also help 100% completely free. So please don't go pay a consultant to complete these applications. All firms will need to create an account and submit an application in the certification platform before it can be processed. And that's where you're going to submit like your supporting documents. You have to upload all of that information on there as well. Now, if you select to go through a third-party certifier for a cost, you're welcome to do that as well. Like I said, the application on SBA site is completely free. If you decide to use a third-party certifier, you will need to pay membership fees for the organization. If you're already a part of one of these organizations, then that's great. They can help you out. And there are only 4 organizations approved by the SBA to provide third-party certification. You would have to contact them to learn more about their certification process and any associated costs, but the 4 organizations are listed here: the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Women Business Owners Corporation, the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce, and the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. Once approved through one of these 4 third-party certifiers, you will still need to upload your proof of citizenship and your certified documentation to the SBA portal. It still has to go through the process. It's still going to come to the SBA. The only perk or benefit of, going through a third-party certifier is that once you join their organization, then you have access to like exclusive events that they put on. So if they have like certain classes or matchmaking events, networking, then, if you're a member, you participate for free without having to pay the fees. But if it's simply for the purpose of applying for this program, I would suggest doing it completely free on your own through the help of us here locally or through a resource partner. But if you do want to have somebody review it or you're already part of these organizations, they can help you out as well. The WOSB Federal Contract Program offers multiple avenues for firms seeking assistance. The SBA's dedicated resource partners are always available to help our small businesses. Firms can also use the SBA's local assistance tool to contact their local SBA district office or your local women's business center. This program is managed by headquarters and only they can answer questions regarding your application. So please feel free to reach out to them, or once you've submitted the application and if you have questions or you want a status update, you can email them, provide your firm name, UEI number, and they should be able to get back to you. Whenever practicable, the SBA will make its determination within 90 calendar days after receipt of a complete package. If your application is deemed incomplete or otherwise does not meet program application requirements, then an SBA representative may reach out to request additional information or documentation. So this concludes the information on the WOSB contracting program. I don't see any questions, I believe, that have come up in the chat, but if anything comes to mind, please type them there. I am checking that out. So let's move on to the final certification program for today, the Veteran Small Business Certification Program, or VetCert for short. So every year, the federal government awards a portion of contracting dollars specifically to businesses owned by veterans.